Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of New York Giants Corner here at Toilets to Titles. You've got your two co-hosts at Joe J underscore Clark, that would be me, and at Drop the Leash JC. We got two Joes over here hosting the show, so everyone's very fortunate, very lucky. Joe, how's it going, my friend?
Hey, ready to, Super Bowl week. We're kind of lagging because if you think about it, nobody's gone 10 days without NFL football since September. So I'm ready for a game on Sunday. But in the meantime, it's always nice to get together and talk a little bit of Giants football, especially when you got an optimistic forecast as we do.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Hey, man, we're optimistic fans over here. We have every reason to be. We just had a really good season, and we got a good GM, good head coach, and I think we're heading in the right direction. But man, I'll tell you, it's like, and before I get to the bells and whistles, real quick, it's funny that you brought that up. We've got the Super Bowl on Sunday, and I was just thinking about that this morning. I'm like, the Super Bowl is finally the Sunday. Like, I'm losing track of days. Like, it feels like forever since we've had football.
It
And
has.
it doesn't feel like a week and a half. It feels like, I don't know, like 3 weeks to me.
Yeah, this week in between, man, and they go back and forth with it all the time. And for a while, I think for a few weeks, we figured there would be no week in between because the Bills and the Bengals and the Chiefs and some iteration of some
Yeah.
AFC Championship game was going to have to be played this week at a neutral field. But luckily, that wasn't the case. But yeah, and then you got to wait till 6:30 on Sunday too. So you wake up excited, but you got to limp through the whole day, especially at our old age to get to the 6:30 kickoff also. But I'm
Yeah,
looking
man.
forward to it. Should be a close game.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. And speaking of the Super Bowl, I guess any predictions you want to give, whether it's final score, point spread, MVP, whatever you got.
I keep on going back and forth, and it seems like Mahomes is healthy enough, but not fully healthy. But you could say the same thing with Hurts and his shoulder. Um, I just feel like I don't want to bet against Mahomes. That feels like not the right thing to do, but Philly is so balanced and well put together that I feel a very slight edge to Philadelphia. My prediction, and just because I just organically think about fantasy and props and sports betting and all that kind of stuff. I think DraftKings is boosting Jalen Hurts anytime touchdown scorer, which basically means you're betting him to score a rushing touchdown at some point in the game to even money. And that just feels like, that feels pretty good because Hurts
Mm,
is scoring a rushing touchdown almost, it feels like he's averaging one a game anyway. So
100%.
that feels like my bet of the week right now is to Hurts to get in the end zone.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if Jalen Hurts winds up winning MVP while only throwing for like 150 yards,
Very
but
true.
scoring three touchdowns, one in the air and two running. I would, and like, because I could also see, like, the Eagles just having good performances from so many people that no one really stands out above the others. So de facto the quarterback, especially if he scores like three touchdowns. So
Yeah.
I've got the Eagles in a not particularly close game, and it's hard for me too. I keep picking the Eagles, and I think, hey, this is Mahomes and Andy Reid, and this is a fairly healthy team as opposed to a few years ago when they lost to the Buccaneers, who I still thought were the better team overall, and the Buccaneers should have won that game, but they went in the Chiefs went to that game with really banged up offensive line that
Offensive
year.
line, yeah.
Yeah, really banged up offensive line, but I still thought they lost to the better team. But you think about Andy Reid, one of the greatest coaches of his generation, probably of all time. Patrick Mahomes, who's already looking like a legend, like a legendary quarterback, just in his prime right now.
It's so hard to not to bet against him. And
It's
even and
hard.
not to, but like I'm thinking
Mhm.
about the last play last week, right, where he guts out the run. He's just making plays like that, and
Yeah.
it's so hard to bet
Uh,
against him. But
and
it's
as a
hard to bet
Giants
against the
fan,
Eagles.
I gotta like as a Giants fan, I am rooting so damn hard
I am rooting
for
for the Chiefs. Yes,
yeah, for Andy Reid and
yes.
Patrick Mahomes, and I'm like, hey, Kadarius Toney scored. This would be a great time to go off 200 yards and five touchdowns. I'm disappointed in you not being on the Giants, but hey, knock out the Eagles. But man, the Eagles are just so well rounded. I think they can do whatever they want, and I can't bet against them, man. They really don't have a weakness. They really don't have a
And I'll
weakness.
tell you what, like Devon, I would have said there's a part of me during the season at some points where I would have said, well, you know what? As great as Hurts is, I'm still not sure if the Eagles can like really keep up with a Mahomes offense that's clicking on all cylinders. Because to your point, they're doing it on the ground more than through the air. AJ Brown and really Devonta Smith had a bad first half, but then
Hmm.
all of a sudden Smith has come on, and so now
Yeah.
all of a sudden you look at it, and their top two wide receivers are actually better than the Chiefs' top two wideouts.
You know what? If I'm Kansas City, I'd probably actually focus on because they have a good defense, but not a great defense.
Right.
I'd focus on actually trying to stop the run, and I take my chances with Hurts, throwing the ball. Even though he's got really good wide receivers, I would take my chance there.
Yeah.
But I would try to contain Hurts and bottle up their running game. If they had to focus on one or the other, that's what I would do. But it's tough, man. It's a great offensive line. Hurts is a dangerous weapon. Um, Great wide receivers, good running game overall. In the Eagles' defense, everyone talks about their offense. The Eagles' defense is
That
clamped
kid
down,
Reddick
man.
is having a crazy playoffs too.
Man, he should have been a Giant. They should have signed
I
that
know.
guy.
I know. I'll tell you
Even
what,
this.
last thing, my parlay of I always try to come up with a parlay for these playoff games. And my
Yeah, yeah,
parlay for this game on Sunday is, and I was talking about it before, Hurts anytime touchdown scorer. But then as we talk about Kansas City, Travis Kelce is just, and I mean in the red zone. So
yeah,
you can parlay Kelce and Hurts two anytime touchdowns, and that's going to bring you back like times 2.5 times your bet. And
yeah.
that feels pretty good right now with those two guys.
That's probably the safest bet of the entire year, yeah, or
Mm.
the safest parlay of the entire year. Are those two guys? And I'll tell you, if I'm the Eagles, um, I'm not really all that concerned with the Chiefs wide receivers. I'm concerned with Mahomes making anything happen with any wide receiver, but I'm going to double up on Kelsey. I'm not going to let
Yeah.
that dude beat
Oh,
me.
and
But
the Eagles' corners are definitely good enough to play the wideouts one. Valdez Scantlin and Schuster. I
yeah,
mean, the Eagles,
I'm not worried about those guys.
Bradbury. Are you kidding me?
Yeah,
Bradbury
I'm
can
not
shut
worried
those
about
two
that.
guys
They
down no
even have a
problem.
great, really good slot corner in Maxwell, I think is his
Yeah.
name. He can't.
Yeah.
And
Yep.
geez, I mean, like Chauncey Gardner is like a luxury at this point.
Yeah.
Unbelievable. So, all right, let's get the bells and whistles out of the way. Everyone, thank you for joining us. If you can, hit that like and subscribe button. Give us a 5-star Apple review. We greatly appreciate it. All that really helps us grow the program, our network, the Toilets to Titles Network, as I like to call it, where you can find our shows, Apple Podcast, YouTube, Facebook, Podbean, and Spotify. And actually, we get to that in a little bit. Our website, toiletstitles.com, has all of our videos, articles. We cover fantasy football, NFL, NCAA, and draft content. So you love football, we got it here at Toilets and Titles, and we don't just have it here. Big announcement. We also have it at the CFB Nation, which stands for the College Football Nation. We have partnered up with them. They're like our sister network. We've combined forces here. How it's pretty much going to work is that going forward, CFB Nation's pretty much going to handle most of the college content, and we here at Toilets and Titles are pretty much going to handle like NFL and fantasy. Fantasy is like our real bread and butter. Fantasy football and NFL content, as well as draft content as well. So NFL draft content. So, but it's great partnership. We're working with some really great people. Moon Vibes, Leverett underscore KT. So again, at the CFB Nation, if you could please subscribe to them on YouTube and Twitter, we greatly appreciate it. And patreon.com/Toilets and Titles. If you go there, you can learn how you can further support the show. And I want to give a big hearty shout out. Thank you to all of our current Patreon supporters. Just want to let you know, your support really means so much to us, and it helps us build our brand, make things even better. Through your support, and your support helped send like a whole team of our guys from Toilets and Titles down to Senior Bowl. Just this past week. And if you haven't seen it, we've had already put out a bunch of
The
videos
player
and
interviews.
yeah,
So
player
many
and
great player interviews.
great player. We had and great player interviews, articles that we've already been pumping out, and we've got more and more coming out. We even had one of our videos from what I forgot who. I think it might have been JL Skinner, um, safety, I believe out of Boise. There was a video we had of him, just like a 10-second video where he basically just like walled a wide receiver. and that actually made it into SB Nation. So
Oh, that's
embedded in one
awesome.
of their articles. Yeah, really cool. So we're moving on up, people. But Patreon supporters, it helps us a
Join
lot.
us. Join us. Join
Yeah,
us.
you're helping us move things up, move the ball here. So we really appreciate it. Anyway, so we are here today to talk about wide receivers for our beloved New York Giants. And Joe and I, the way we broke it up is that Joe's pretty much focused on doing research on like the free agent wide receivers. What I'm bringing what I'm bringing to the table here is more wide receivers in the draft, and obviously there's dozens and dozens of wide receivers. I'm trying to narrow it down to who I think could realistically be there, as well as be a fit for um, what I think Dable and Kafka would want, the type of wide receivers they want, as well as our needs. So I try to make it narrow it down through the prism of reality. So, but we're going to start off with the free agents, and I told Joe, I said when we get to the free agents, I'm going to kick it off actually with the OBJ question. What do you think? Would you want it back? Would you want to, if so, like, do you have a dollar figure in mind? The amount of years? Like, I'm
I
just going to
think
leave it out there.
yeah, no, and it's amazing. It was shocking to me this year when he became a relevant free agent where, he was looking at teams. It was really shocking to me that the Giants were kind of like on that top 3 list, and he went, and I think the first meeting he had was with the Giants. And I think that, I mean, if he could have played this year, I think I think all of the teams would have been eager to sign him. I don't think he would have ended up a Giant. He probably would have ended up a Cowboy, maybe a Buffalo Bill, whatever it may have been. I don't think him. I have a hard time, and it's not even because of him. This has nothing to do with his performance as a Giant previously or his personality. And look at my daughter. I love this. So I got my 11-year-old. Hi, Ava. How are you? Um, she's commenting on the dog, which you got a Emma Rex, which she named.
Your dog is better than mine. Melvin, I shouldn't even say his name is relaxing right now, but
But
Melvin
it's
has his own
probably
Twitter
almost
handle too.
bedtime for you, Ava. But I love you very much, and thank you for saying hello. Nobody can throw me off track like the kiddos, right?
Exactly.
But I feel like going into free agency for next year, and it's funny. I do believe the Giants need a veteran a veteran wideout to help some of the younger guys. Whether it's Wan'Dale Robinson, Hodgkins, Slayton's still young. I feel like they need a veteran, but I don't realistically think it will be OBJ. Would I be okay with it? Absolutely. If you gave him a year with a little bit of guaranteed money and maybe a team option on the second year, player option for the second year, I'd be fine with that. I would. I don't see it happening, but at the same time, they need a big target and they need a veteran. So he
Yeah.
does fit what they need. I don't know. Do you realistically think that's a would OBJ pick them in an off season?
I don't know. Like the thing, like even last year, well, earlier this year in the offseason, I'm wondering, like, I know he loved it here, but I know he also felt burned, or at least by Gettleman, and rightfully so. Um, they really screwed him, and the ink was just dry in the contract when they traded him to Cleveland,
Yeah. And the
and
narrative was really bad.
it was bad. They just and I've never really been an OBJ fan. I'll be honest with you. I don't dislike the guy. He always made me uncomfortable with his personality, and I just felt like things just always kind of became about him and the fan base that is just really big with him. Just always seemed to make it really just about him. And to be honest, it really everything was about him because the team stunk during
Yeah.
his tenure here.
Yeah.
But
I think
I
he's
don't I
mellowed
don't
a bit.
yeah, I don't know. I don't think so, dude.
Because,
I
well,
don't know.
I mean, he proved you got to give him some credit for getting trade or not getting traded, but you, I love you too, honey. You got to give him some credit though. A couple of years back for going to the Rams mid-season and
Yeah,
playing a role, but playing a role behind
100%.
Cooper Cup. And even in that year, even really playing a role behind Robert Woods also, and doing that without any negative, attitude about it. And he was relevant for them. He made some big plays for them.
100%. Um, I would say this though, I don't he minded himself because he was on the Rams. He was on a team that was already very good, that had veterans like Stafford, Aaron Donald. He was not the number one wide receiver. That was Cooper Cup. That story was already being written. Him coming to the Giants now, it scares me. listen, we're in a better position than we were whenever he was on the Giants for the most part. Um, but I'm afraid like we're still not in a position where I feel like we're still in a position where he comes on board, it's going to be kind of like him running the show. It just scares me. But however, part of me does want him back. I always felt like, even though I was ready to move on from him, to be honestly, when he was traded, I never hated the guy. I was just ready to move on from him. Same thing with Shock. He was traded back in 2008. Um, you know, I part of me was sad because I'm like, man, this guy was so talented. I know he wants to be on the Giants or at least in the New York market, and he's someone who should have been in the uniform for his entire career. And I felt bad about that. And I do like the idea of a reunion. I don't trust him to be, like I said, if this were a team of veterans competing for a Super Bowl, it's different.
Yeah.
I still don't feel like we're at that point. Um, but
And we
listen,
don't know he's going to come back
for the right,
100% either. He's getting
yeah, we
older and he's
don't.
now missed a full season.
He's had like two ACL tears, I
Yeah.
believe.
Yeah.
And but for the right price, I bring him back for a year and some sort of option in there, whether it's a team option, I guess. You know, show me the money. I don't know the money. I don't what $8 million a year. He could probably get more. Maybe I do for 1 year. I do like $10 million, I guess. Like I think I can make a justification for almost anything they'd give him for a year. I don't care about a year. I'd be intrigued. I'd be intrigued. I'm not hanging my hat on it. I'm not going to be disappointed if he goes somewhere else to the Cowboys or the Bills. But I am intrigued. I have to say, and he would be out of. If you look at this free agent class, which we're going to go through,
Oh, it's dreadful.
and it's going to be that way because wide receivers, these guys don't hit the open market anymore.
No,
They're
yeah.
they're either getting long term contracts or they're getting traded.
Yep.
Look at
Yep.
Tyreek Hill.
It's a really interesting group. When you look at this group, as I've spent some time with them now, it's like, wow, this is an odd group of
let's start going
wideouts.
through them.
And
Let's
start going through them. And the
Yep.
other thing about OBJ is, and you're right, 8-10 million. It sounds fair, but here's the issue with that for the Giants. He's not your number one, right? You're not signing OBJ to be your number one. So if you're giving OBJ 8 to 10 million a year, now you got to go out and get a number one for 15 to 20 million. How much are they realistically spending on wideout this year?
Or you're drafting.
Well, that's
you're
part
drafting.
of it.
That's the thing too. It's like, you can't will do, Nino, will do, check the overlays.
What does
But
that mean?
that's no, it's like something that goes over the screen. I'm gonna fool around while you're talking about the first wide receiver, but the but yeah, no, I think he would be automatically the wide receiver number one. But if we draft a guy in the first or second round who's got that potential, probably have to wait for him to develop.
Yeah.
So I
All
do
right.
like that. Okay,
So-
who's the first person on your board, man?
Well, let's start real quick. Let's ground everybody with where we are now. What do we have now going into next season? What do we know? We have
no one really signed except for an injured Wan'Dale Robinson.
Correct. So coming out of the year, we had Sterling Shepard on an ACL injury. He's a wild card. You had Wan'Dale Robinson, who we do know he will be back, but he obviously also got hurt. Although I do love the flashes that he showed.
Totally, but just a reminder to people: you may not see a real Wan'Dale Robinson fully healthy until 2024. I mean, he might be back on the field middle of next year, but he might not be, game shape.
Yeah, that's tough. That's really too bad.
Tough,
I think the Kadarius Toney trade, which probably happened for a lot of off the field reasons too, but I think that trade was a lot easier to make with Wan'Dale Robinson on the field doing what he was doing and progressing each week and everything. I don't know if they make that Toney deal if they knew that Robinson was going to end up with an ACL, but what can you do? And then you had Darius Slayton, who's like continually ends up being the unsung hero of this wide receiver group. He was Jones's everything by the end of the year. The big play guy, the third down guy. I want Slayton
back.
I do too. I want Slayton back too.
Depending upon the price. I've seen a I guess a suggested contract or a contract between guest of like, I don't know, like $4 million a year. And I'm like,
I'm fine with that.
I'm fine with that. Like, I'm not giving him $8 million a year, but $4 million, and I think he'd actually get more than that on the open market.
With the
I would, yeah. I'm like, if it's that, I'll take him. Listen, I'm not looking for him to be a number one just because we don't have a number one. I don't see him that way. But he's a number. I think a legit number three. He can take the top of the defense. I don't want to count on him to be a number one. But guys, stop getting injured. Kadarius Toney, don't be a dick. You'd
Yep.
be on the you'd be on the damn team. Wandale, don't be injured. What can I say? Sterling, don't be injured. He stays healthy. He's the only guy who's ever available.
I know.
And Isaiah Hodgins, definitely
well,
want that guy
I was
back
going to
too.
go there next. The unsung hero of the group this year and the surprise of the group, Isaiah Hodgins. Now he is signed for next year, isn't he?
I believe so.
Yeah, I think
I'm almost positive he's signed, and I've seen people like on Twitter saying like, "Oh, we should definitely bring him back," and I think he's back. It's
I
like
think he
whether or not
deserves.
you extend him now or do you wait till next year to extend him when his price could possibly go up. I'm fine with waiting, but he's back.
Yeah,
but I'd bring Slayton back.
I'm trying to think of where Hodgkins can sit, right? Like, so you make a point on Wan'Dale Robinson, so let's just keep him kind of like out of play, really, from a depth chart perspective. And I guess the question would be, you think they bring Richie James back?
Here's the overlay.
Beautiful,
Joe,
I love it.
Nino, great job, Nino. Great job. Look at us.
It.
We look handsome. You look better than I do.
I don't know about that. But what do you think about Richie James? Do you think they bring Richie James back?
I'd bring him back too. Listen, I'd bring these guys back, and not as like, oh my God, these guys were just scratching the surface, which we could be with Isaiah Hodgins, even though I think some people are like, oh, he could be a number one. He's not. I think at the very best, his ceiling is number two. But for right now, until we can actually get real number ones and like in number twos that could stay on the field, I at least want some pretty good number threes, and that's what you have. I think Isaiah Hodgins' floor is number three, and his ceiling is probably number two. But hey, don't give me a bunch of like number five and number six guys as free agents who failed somewhere else and just goes, oh, we've got Brian Dable, we're going to make them work. Give me some guys who prove themselves on this team, who are not jerks, who work hard and have actually produced. That's where I'm at. But we got to draft wide receivers, and a free agent would certainly help.
Yeah. And the way I was looking at it, this free agents wise, is I was looking at it in two ways. Like, one, they need a number one, right? So I'm looking at this free agent list thinking, is there a number one here? And then on the other side of that,
possibly OBJ.
Possibly. And then on the other side of that, I feel like they need a little bit of depth and some veteran depth at the back end of the list too. So let's look at it from a number one perspective. And right off the bat, I'm going to give you the names that have stuck out to me. And then I'll kind of go where I think they could fit. Mm-hmm. The fact that these are the names with the way wide receivers are in the NFL today, this is a shockingly bad group.
Yeah.
However,
and I think it's going to be that way going forward because, like I said, everyone's keeping their wide receivers or they're trading
aren't even hitting the market.
Yeah.
So here we go. You got Alan Lazard. You got Jacoby Myers. You got J.J. Smith-Schuster, McCole Hardman, Paris Campbell,
I hate all of them.
Brown, Jarvis Landry, Zach Pascal, Marquise Goodwin, DeAndre Carter, and Demarcus Robinson. Those are the guys that actually stuck out to me. So really what I'm giving you is my favorite of this group, which is makes it even worse.
Wait, before you go there, I just want to point out, am I wrong in saying, in your opinion, do you disagree when I say none of those guys are really better than Darius Slayton, who is a known commodity, for the Giants, or Isaiah Hodgins?
The only one, so there's not a real number one on this list, in my opinion. I think the closest you're going to get, to be honest, is Jacoby Myers. And I actually thought that he was a really, as bad as the list is in general, I actually thought Myers was a really intriguing name because, he's going into his fifth season, so he's young. He's coming out of making $4 million last year, $3,986 as a base salary.
He's like 25.
He's only like 25, and he went for, and this was an anemic offense with questionable Mac Jones, and then what Brady, or what was who was the other, Zappy?
Zappy, Bailey Zappy,
So this is who was throwing to Jacoby Myers all year, and he went for 67 catches, 804 yards, and 6 touchdowns. And he was getting double-digit targets almost most weeks by the end of the season.
Yeah.
So,
and I said earlier, oh, these guys stink. I say that all the time. I drop it a little too often. Some guys I think really do stink. I do drop it too often, but when I'm just looking at a free agency class, like for a team that needs, wide receivers, just got to shake my head like. Just in terms of the overall quality stinks. But I don't think Jacoby Myers actually stinks, or Schuster, or Noah Brown.
Noah Brown, and so Myers, I think, out of the list would probably be my number one. If I could choose, I think
What?
Myers would be my first choice.
Why do you think so?
I like his age, and I like
Hmm.
what he did last year on not a great
Yeah.
offense, and he
Yeah.
was their number one. Now, do you want your
Hmm.
number one to have 804 yards and 6 touchdowns? No. However, their
It would be
offense
better
was
than the
built to
number
run the
ones we have
ball.
right now.
Yeah, and he wasn't playing with a great quarterback. So,
Hmm.
I still think it's a weak wide receiver group. If you have it Myers as your one, that's still not a great group. But
Hmm.
I like that you're signing youth and you're signing somebody who
Yeah.
produced pretty well last year for, for a
Yeah.
team like the Patriots and everything. Now and I asked a couple of my buddies, a couple buddies like Lazard more than they like Myers, and a couple buddies like Schuster more than they like Myers.
Hmm.
Schuster to me has had a really bizarro season in Kansas City this year. He
Hmm.
went from being clearly the second target after Kelsey, where he was getting almost double-digit targets and doing pretty well. He's not an 80-yard touchdown, type player. He's a possession receiver, and that was what his stats look like. But then he kind of has disappeared, and I don't understand how you
Yeah.
disappear as the number one wideout on a Patrick Mahomes offense. And that really worries me. Now, he ended up with 78 catches, 933 yards, and 3 touchdowns,
Hmm.
but he was banged up too. And
Hmm.
I don't know. Like, again, against Jacoby Myers, I rather Myers. Now, if you tell me they add Schuster, I'd rather add Schuster than not add Schuster and not add anybody. But I
Yeah.
think I like Myers more than Schuster. And I don't love Lazard, but I actually kind of think I'd rather give Lazard a shot than Schuster too, because I feel like Lazard at least has a higher ceiling. He has a higher potential, in my opinion. What do you
Yeah.
think?
I think he's got. I don't know. Lazard is always. He's played his entire career. It's not all that long. He's played his entire career with Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah,
And if
and
you're
you'd be
not putting
going to
up wide
Daniel Jones.
receiver, yeah. If you're not playing, if you're not putting up wide receiver one numbers
Fair
with
point.
Aaron Rodgers, I got a problem with you.
It's a good point.
So and also I think he's got a history of injury too. And
Yeah.
man, we need. I mean, just give me Sterling Shepard back on the vet minimum at that
Yeah.
point. So, but I hear you. It's not like I don't think Lazard is garbage or anything. That's the thing with this free agency class is that it's like pick your poison. Like none of these guys are going to be wide receivers one. They might be like if we don't say we draft a wide receiver even in the first round, but he's kind of like raw and he needs some time. He's not ready to step on the field and be like a stud like a Jamar Chase. That's probably going to happen.
Right.
But some of these guys, someone's going to have to be like our de facto number one. Just I guess for me, it just depends on what's the price. Like
Yeah, and that's
and that's the thing. It's like, hey man, and like Joe Shane said, and it's the right philosophy. You can't be shopping hungry, and you can't be overpaying for your
no.
food just
It
because you're
straps
hungry.
you too much in the NFL,
Mhm.
and they've already experienced it with Galladay. They can't make the same mistakes twice. Now, not these guys aren't $20 million guys, but
Yeah.
and I'll leave you with one thing on wideouts. So to me, Schuster, Myers, Lazard are probably the biggest money guys that are out there. And from a
Hmm.
Giants depth chart perspective, those 3 guys probably are their number one if they're on the roster, even though
Yeah.
they're not number ones in general, but they're a
Right.
number one in that group. But
You're
here are
right.
the
You're
3
right.
guys that kind of intrigue me from like it would be a hell of a competition in the offseason. I don't know how it would end up, but the 3 guys that excite me the most after Myers aren't number one guys. They're guys that
Hmm.
would be in the second half of the depth chart, but I really liked what they did this year. 1A is a
Hmm.
healthy McCole Hardman. Now,
Hmm.
I find it hard to believe with the way the Chiefs used him when he was healthy this year that they're going to let him walk.
Hmm.
However, he's got the speed, so he might warrant a little more money and more years than people expect. But I
Hmm.
love Hardman. I mean, they need and I guess Wan'Dale Robinson has home run speed, but they
Hmm.
need somebody dynamic like Hardman. So that would be somebody that would be super intriguing to me. You said the other guy earlier, Noah Brown. I really
I like
liked
him.
what he
I like him.
did when
Yeah.
Gallup was hurt. And he didn't
Me
do that
too.
with Dak Prescott either. If you really think about it, his
Yeah.
best games were with Rush. Um,
Yeah.
so if you told me that we dropped Noah Brown as our number 3, I'd be pretty excited about that also.
I like him too, and he may be a good value signing too. And it's hard to say that because when you look at the list, like teams are so hard up for wide receivers. Like
Yeah.
I'm thinking, oh, maybe we can get OBJ for like $10 million. If I'm OBJ and I'm looking at my competition in the market, I'm thinking, dude, I'm not signing for less than $14 million a year, at
Yeah.
least for a year. Like he could probably get it.
Yeah.
But I do like Noah Brown too. And something else about Noah Brown is that when he was playing his best, it was with Noah, it was with Rush. You're right, Cooper Rush at quarterback. Also, Gallup was down. He wasn't healthy, and Dalton Schultz wasn't healthy either. So they got those two guys back, and Gallup, really, who I've never really been that high in anyway, he didn't really do much. Dalton Schultz did by the end, like the last quarter of the year. The Dalton
Yeah.
Schultz that we were expecting showed
Yeah.
up. He
He
was
was
just
their
dealing with a
go-to
lot of.
after
He was,
Hurley.
yeah, he was dealing with a lot of injuries. But even if, like, say, like Gallup didn't put up a lot of numbers, these guys are taking targets, you know. So, but I agree
Yep.
with you. I like Noah Brown a
The
lot
last
too. I really
one
do.
in that group, actually, there's two more. Paris Campbell, who went 63, 623, and 3 touchdowns for the Colts this year with Matt Ryan, and who the hell
Yeah.
was it after Matt Ryan? I can't even remember now. Oh, Ellinger?
Yeah, Ellinger. Yeah.
Ellinger.
Sam
So,
Ellinger. Yep.
I mean, 63, 623 with Ellinger and Ryan. That's not
He's
bad.
tall and fast.
And there you go, right? Now, maybe he's a
Mhm,
little kind of like Slayton, but I love the
mhm.
fact that he's got some height. It'd be nice to give Daniel Jones some bigger targets. And then the other one, who I find really intriguing, and he's kind of in the same Noah Brown because he got some time, is DeAndre Carter of the Chargers. So, Mike
Yes.
Williams missed a lot of games this year. Keenan
Yep.
Allen missed games this year. And
I
anytime
like
those
that.
guys miss games, DeAndre Carter played in that slot and he was all over the place for them. And,
Yeah.
again, he's not 20 million a year, right? So you drop him
No.
in the slot because Hodgkins moves up to your number 2. I feel
Mhm.
really nice about that also.
Yeah, and you know what? A good thing. I just want people to understand too. Joe was just mentioning the word slot, and you're going to hear me talk about slot, outside, XYZ receivers. It's really, this isn't your parents or your grandparents' NFL anymore, where slot guy is a slot guy. Slot guys like Sterling Shepard actually play on the outside, get moved to the outside at times. They're moving receivers all over the place. Now they'll have their slot, they'll have their position on the field where they play the most, but these guys actually get moved around a lot, quite a bit. Um, think about Galladay, man.
Ugh.
And you had mentioned before, like, hey, getting like you had, insinuated getting like, hey, we could use like a big, tall guy, on the outside and like a 50-50 guy that
Yeah.
Galladay didn't turn out to be for us for whatever reason. I'm dying to know the story with what the hell happened with Kenny Galladay and what happened with Kadarius Toney. I'd love to see like a nice report in the New York Post on that or something,
Yeah.
or on Toilets and Titles, that inside information on
Behind the
those two
music.
guys. Exactly, behind the music, exactly. Report on both of those guys. What the hell happened, especially with Galladay?
Insane.
But I don't know. Listen, I'm a Daniel Jones supporter. I love Daniel Jones. I drink the Daniel Jones Kool-Aid for the most part. Uh, I'm wondering if he's just not comfortable throwing to a guy like 50-50. He might just, I don't know, something about it. Like, he might not be comfortable throwing. The whole Kenny Galladay thing just makes so little sense to me that it makes me wonder, like, is he uncomfortable throwing, like, like a 50-50 ball and trusting the guy to get the ball? Like, does he want guys who are separators? That's, it probably doesn't make any sense, but the whole Galladay thing just didn't make any sense to me.
No, that's such a conundrum and one of those weird, bizarre ones. But
Yeah.
I'm just glad that we're finally gonna be out of that. After this past
Yeah.
season. But
Now watch,
that's
he's going to go somewhere else and
oh
get,
my god,
a
and light it
thousand
up, right?
yards.
Um,
Telling you, man.
I had a weird vision of him going to Chicago for some reason, cheap
He's going
money,
to go,
and
he'll
have
go to the
Justin
Eagles
Fields.
cheap.
There's right, yeah, right. But that's my list. So I need the education on the draftees in the potential, the wide receiver draftee depth chart. But that's pretty. It's a slim pickings list on the free agency side. But
Uh-huh.
as we talked about, I think there's some guys there that can certainly add value to the current group that we have. But to your
Totally.
point, it's gonna be a teamwork build between free agency in the
Yeah.
draft. So from the draft side of it, who do you feel like we really have a chance at?
And you know what? Let's get into that. But I do want to say it. You know what? I actually like Chicago. What you just said for Galladay, like a
I
1 year
mean,
deal.
you
They're
gotta
wide
get Fields
receiver
some
needy.
targets. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, I actually like that. I like that actually. Um, all right, so let's go to here's I had it. Okay, I'm going to bring in my first three wide receivers. These are guys I'm breaking it down where listen, there's so many wide receivers. I can't obviously. There's only so many. I had to narrow it down, and I tried to narrow it down by guys who I think could be there, and who are realistic in terms of like who could be there, and also who I think the Giants see as fitting in their offensive scheme, in terms of what they like to do. Um, Originally, I was not going to include these three guys, but I decided to. Quentin Johnson out of TCU, Jordan Addison out of USC, and Jackson Smith-Njigba. I think that's how you pronounce the last name, out of Ohio State. I originally didn't include these three guys because I didn't think they'd be there at number 25, where the Giants are picking in the first round. However, I think this is a much different draft class than we've seen over the past few years. Those draft classes over, especially over the past 2 years, maybe 3 years, were extremely wide receiver heavy and top heavy. Like you had just a few years ago, you had Jalen Waddle, Jamar Chase, Jalen Waddle, and Devontae Smith going in the top 10. I don't think you're going to see three wide receivers go in the top 10, which actually would kind of be shocking because everyone needs wide receivers. I think you might see one, either Quentin Johnston or Jordan Addison. I think those are the two best wide receivers. I think that, like I said originally, I wasn't going to include these three guys, but I think there may be one of them that actually drops to us, and that would probably be Jackson Smith and Njigba. Real quick, let me go into these guys real quick, and we got a comment over here. Nino, I'm going to get to Xavier Hutchinson and Tank Dell. They're on my list for past the first round. You'll see. These are the first round lock wide receivers. Like I'd be shocked if any of these three guys made it past the first round. Um, okay, first of all, Quentin Johnson out of TCU is probably the unanimous, not unanimous. He's probably the overall number one wide receiver in this draft. Big body. Let me
Is he a
bring up
top
his
10
draft.
guy?
He should go. I think he should go in the top 10, either him or Jordan Addison. I don't think both of them will go in the top 10 because it's not a top heavy draft class, but it does have good depth. It does have good depth. And this draft class is really strong on the defensive side of the ball. It's got some pretty good offensive linemen. It's got really good cornerbacks. Everybody needs cornerbacks. It's got good edge rushers. It's got some good linebackers, and it's got some really good interior defensive linemen. And safeties. I'd say it's more of a defensive heavy draft class than we've seen in the past few years. But you do have a lot of wide receivers that are pretty good, and I think you're going to see in like second and third round. There's going to be runs on these guys. Don't get me wrong. But okay, Quentin Johnson. Let me bring up his one of his write ups over here real quick. All right, so he's 6'4", 212 pounds. We need a big guy who can play on the outside. Quentin Johnson again can play all over the place. You really want him on the outside. He's 6'4", 212 pounds. Not easy to bring down. This guy is a burner. He is physical. He's everything you're looking for really in an outside receiver. And he had a monster season. He even had a pretty good game in the national championship game, if I recall correctly. Believe it or not, even though it was blowout city against Georgia, I think Quentin Johnson actually showed up and performed, if I recall correctly. But he did have other really good bowl games this year, on the way to the national championship game. But he's got everyone needs an outside receiver, especially our New York Giants. The guy's 6'4", 212 pounds. He does it all. I don't know. I doubt he's going to be there, but it's possible because another team might actually like Jordan Addison out of USC the most. He's probably the most refined wide receiver in the draft. Now he's got decent height. He's like 6 foot, but he's like 178 pounds. So that's at least 6 foot, 175 pounds. So you're looking at a guy who's, the height's not bad, but he's not exactly going to be breaking. He's not known for breaking tackles either, like Quentin Johnson.
Yeah, I'm
But
looking
he
at
can,
Quentin Johnson real quick too. He went
yeah,
for 6 and 163 and a touchdown in the Michigan BCS game. And then the other thing that I'm loving about him, looking
mhm,
at his stats, his 3 years, his average yardage per catch was 22, 18 and a half, and 17.8. I can't
yeah.
remember the last time the Giants had
And,
had a you know what I
can you
mean? Had
imagine?
had
Can you
wide
imagine him
receivers
and
that were doing that.
can you imagine him and OBJ? That would be nice.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, we're not. Well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. Fortunately, we're drafting at number 25 because we had a good season. But I can't see him falling out of the top 10. And I mean, that top 10 is going to be. You got a few quarterbacks who are going to go. You got offensive linemen, defensive linemen, cornerbacks. But I'm hoping that some other teams fall in love, and who I love anyway, Jordan Addison. Like I said, the most refined. This guy's a really good route runner. He's got great hands. He's got electric speed, and he's yeah. The thing with Jordan Addison is that, like I said earlier, is that he's not going to be breaking tackles. Okay, that's not him, and he's never going to be breaking tackles. He doesn't have the frame where the guy's not going to go from 175 pounds to 212 pounds like Quentin Johnson. But you have to get your hands on him. And he's
Did he get hurt this year? Because he went, I'm looking
yes,
at his stats. He went for 100 catches, which I feel
hmm
like for college is pretty unheard of.
and
100
that's a loaded
catches
talent group
for
in USC.
1,593 yards and
hmm
17 touchdowns in 2021.
And where
And
was he
then,
playing?
yeah, I was about to ask you that.
He was playing at Pitt, I believe.
Wow. Holy
Yeah,
crap. Those
if I
2021
recall
stats are
correctly, he was
insane.
playing at Pitt and then he transferred to USC.
And he went for
He
59, 75, and 8 this
he
year, which is still
yeah,
pretty good.
yeah, but also USC. I think he did get injured, but also USC is loaded with talent.
Yeah.
So he went to a bigger program, but so his numbers went down. But don't be deceived by that. The guy is a really really polished wide receiver, and if we were fortunate to get that guy, let's put it this way. I would have no problem with our needs all over the place. I would have no problem if we took an offensive lineman or a really good interior. I'm not. If we took a linebacker or a really good interior offensive lineman or a cornerback at pick 25. However, if Jordan Addison's sitting there for us at 25, I'm running to the podium and I'm drafting that dude. He's really good. He might be the most talented wide receiver in this draft class. I think he is. Now, in terms of his physical size, his girth, no, but I'm not all that worried about it. You got to get your hands on this guy first. Um, so he's an excellent wide receiver. Love the guy. And another one is Njigba out of Ohio State. The dude's fast. He's fast, and he needs a little more polish on his game than Jordan Addison or Quentin Johnston, and that's why he may actually fall to us. I think Johnston and Addison are the clear two best wide receivers in this class, and Jackson Smith-Njigba may actually be there for us. Um, and
Is
this
he
guy
similar to
is
Wan'Dale Robinson?
who Njigba?
Yeah.
No, no, Najigba. No, no, no. He's bigger than that.
Okay.
Let me bring up his. He's 6 foot, 198 pounds, but he's another guy who he's very very fast. And he accelerates really quickly. And the guy is he can play all over the place as well. He plays mostly on the outside, but he can play slot as well. And that's what you see more and more, not just in college, but in the NFL. The NFL is becoming more and more of a NCAA type of offense where they're mixing things up. You see it on the Giants this past year too. So these are the guys, the first round picks. Like I don't think Johnson and Addison are going to be there. I think there's a chance that Njigba's there. But I figured I should bring these guys up anyway, and I think it's a 50-50 chance that Jackson Smith and Njigba is there for us at number 25. And if they want to take that guy, I'm cool with it. But if these three guys are gone in the first round, I'm cool with taking a. This is a really good, very good cornerback draft. I'm very good with taking a cornerback. They got some really good linebackers that should be available for us in the first. Even some edge rushers if we want to beef up. Bring in a rotation behind Ojolari and Kayvon Thibodeau, or even interior defensive linemen or interior offensive linemen. We've got options. We've got options. However, if these guys aren't there in the first, Joe, I've got some picks for you in the second round. These are guys who I
Mhm.
think are going to be there. They're different. They're different from those first round guys. And I do want to say about real quick about Jordan Addison. He did win the Bolitnikoff Award, not this season, but the previous season
The
when he
Pitt
was at
season.
Pitt. Yeah, he did win. He was the Bolitnikoff Award winner. This year's Bolitnikoff Award winner, I have projected as a second round pick, and I have him on the list here. We'll get to him in a little bit. Second round, these are guys. First one is Zay Flowers. I love this guy. This guy may actually be my favorite wide receiver in this draft. He's small. He is Wan'Dale Robinson. He's
Okay.
like a Kadarius Toney. This is a guy. He's small. Let me bring up his report over here for the details. He's all right. Well, he's not as small as Wan'Dale Robinson, but he's 5'10", 177 pounds. So he's not small, small. But this dude he's got track speed. He's like expected to run a 4.3 probably or
Wow.
around that. Yeah. Watch his people. I implore you to watch his game tape, his videos on YouTube. Just Google on YouTube. Just search Zay Flowers. You're gonna love what you see from this guy. Really shifty, really hard to take down, explosive in short areas, and very good hands. Very good hands too. I'd say he actually has better hands than Wandale Robinson, who, Wandale Robinson's got really short arms, small hands, and he actually catches the ball a lot with his body because I think he's like us short people. Pretty much, you pretty much have to when a
Yeah.
ball's being thrown to
And I
you.
feel like the
You know,
speedsters are notorious for not having good hands too.
yeah, yeah, you're probably right. This guy is, and again, he's only 5'10", but he ideally you think, okay, you're not going to play him on the outside because he's not 6 foot or taller. He can play on the outside. He can play all over the place. Ideally, you want that big body. I get it, but you can put him all over the place. And I love the idea, quite honestly, of a Zay Flowers and a Waddell Robinson running all over the place out there in the type of offense that they seem to like to run. They seem to like to run a lot of slants, a lot of horizontal West Coast offense instead of vertical stuff.
Yep.
I love Zay Flowers. So Boston College, Zay Flowers. I love this dude. Don't be shocked if he actually goes in the back end of the first round. I wouldn't be surprised at all. Rasheed Rice, SMU. This dude's a burner. He's going to go in the second round. He did not have. He's a senior, and he was at Senior Bowl. And from all the reports that I read, including our team that was down there, Toilets to Titles, but also some others, that were down there. Yeah, Rashid Rice seemed to like really not impress all that much, but this is a guy who's probably still going to go in the second round. But he's got pretty good size, Rashid Rice. He's 6'2", 203 pounds, but he's actually played quite a bit in the slot. And but he plays on the outside. He can play in the slot. The dude's got he's a very good run after the catch. You want yak yards? You want yak yards? Rasheed Rice can get you those yak yards. Um, and then you got Jalen Hyatt out of Tennessee, who is this year's Blitnikoff Award winner. Controversial. People don't think he's that talented or that he deserved it. I think rightfully so. I think Quentin Johnson probably should have won that award actually. But this is a dude who put up huge numbers this year. I think he put up something like 1,500 yards. I think he had a 5 touchdown performance against Alabama this year. He's
Oh
out of
wow.
Tennessee. Yeah. So that's crazy. That's crazy. So, but this guy, you want a guy who can take the top off of the defense. If you look that up in the dictionary, you're going to see Jalen Hyatt. Uh, you're going to see Jalen Hyatt there, right underneath that definition. So if we need, we could definitely use a burner, a guy who can take the top off of the defense, plays on the outside. That's Jalen Hyatt. And let me bring up his measurables real quick over here. All right, so 6 foot, 180 pounds. Yeah, another guy who he's someone who ran a verified 4.31 40-yard dash, and he's got a
Wow.
34.5-inch vertical jump, which is people don't know that's actually really high. So the guy he's very very athletic. So these are realistic options who I think for the second round. I'd be shocked if Rasheed Rice or Jalen Hyatt win the first round. I do think there's a chance that Zay Flowers actually goes in the back end of the first round. And we may actually take Zay Flowers, even though we have Wandale Robinson. Zay Flowers is someone else that you can also run a lot of different types of plays with.
Yeah,
Like they
and
were
you got
trying
to
to do
feel
with
like there's
Wandale.
a pretty good chance of them picking a wide out with one of those first two.
Oh
There's
man,
there's
they better. They
there's multiple
better.
positions of need, but I
Yeah,
mean the wideout is so glaring. And to your
yeah,
earlier point, it's the most expensive position right now to
yeah,
fill via free agency.
yeah,
So
yeah.
you got to believe that. I mean, and then if you say the first 3 rounds, you got to say it's 99% chance that there's a wideout in one of their first 3 picks. I would imagine.
Oh yeah, and did you say third round? Let's move on to the third round. These are some of my wide receivers, third round and beyond. Now these are guys that I think have a good chance of going in the third round. They may slip. They may slip further. And this is pretty much the last group that I have here. I do have some names, some honorable mentions I'm going to bring up later. But like I said, I have to narrow it down. Some way. So these are guys again that I think kind of fit our needs and that I personally like. The first one is there are two names on right here that Nino brought up earlier. Xavier Hutchinson and Tank Dell. And I can't wait to talk about Tank Dell. We'll get to him in a second. But Xavier Hutchinson out of Iowa State. Let's bring up his measurables. Dude's got a big body. He was impressive down at Senior Bowl, and he's 6'3", 205 pounds. He's got a lot of good twitch, and he's actually he's very good at creating space. He is good athletically. He does have stuff to brush up on, like he's kind of like Darius Slayton. He's got his a little case of the dropsies, which
Dropsies.
Giants fans still have PSTD from Evan Ingram and Darius Slayton, but that is an issue, somewhat of an issue with him. But again, he's a big body. I don't think he's going in the second round. He is talented. And again, someone else has been used in at the slot as well, used on the outside, used in the slot. He's going to be an outside guy. But again, someone you can deploy pretty much all over the place. And he could wind up going in the second round. It depends on when a run starts on the wide receivers. He could wind up going in the second round. I see him more as a third rounder. There's just too much depth at other areas in this draft, like cornerback, edge, defensive line, linebacker. There's too much, I think, for Xavier Hutchinson to go in the second, but it's possible, and I wouldn't be shocked. But I have him pegged as a third. Trey Palmer out of Nebraska, I love a lot. I could see him being actually a fourth rounder. Like I said, this is third round and beyond. But here's a dude who I really like a lot. Very good hands. He's 6'4". I think he's 200 pounds. I'm
Wow.
looking here.
That is
I'm
skinny.
looking here.
That is a
I'm
skinny
looking.
guy.
Yeah. So someone messed up over here. The write up I'm looking at. It says 280 pounds. That's not accurate. That's not accurate. But he's not a guy who's known for actually breaking tackles. He is tall. He's 6'4", and he's actually not that. He's not like that bulky. But he is someone who is used all over the place. I'm just reading from over here. Nebraska deploys him on jet sweeps, bubble/wide receiver screens, and he's actually a special teamer as well. He's been used for he's actually a very good punt and kick returner. So we could use that as well.
Yeah.
So he's yeah, we could definitely use that. So
They haven't had
he
a
brings
good
a
kick
lot.
returner since Dave Meggett.
Oh, I know. It's been, yeah. Well, I guess so. We
Well,
had,
no,
well, you had
we had
Hickson.
somebody.
We had Hicks. We had
Dixon.
Hickson in the two Super Bowls,
Dixon.
2007, 2011. We had Dixon and Ron Dixon in 2000, who was returning kicks for touchdowns all the time. But
Wait,
what's
who are
his
you
name?
talking about? Hickson.
There's Hickson with an H.
I
In
don't remember him.
2006, oh man, he was actually like our number four wide receiver, and he was really damn good. There were times when like Plax was down, he would step in and have like a 100-yard game.
All right.
Dominic Hickson.
I do remember him.
Yeah, and he
Wow.
actually in that Week 16 game against the Patriots in 2007, when we were trying to keep them from going perfect in the regular season, Hickson did return a kick for a touchdown. He was really good. But anyway, Trey he's versatile. So again, a guy, a big body, but he's actually used all over the place. And I know the Giants they love versatility. I could see them having their eyes on this guy in the third round. It could be fourth round, but I think I could see them going for this guy in the third round as a possibility. And especially again, the guy's got serious value as a punt and kick returner. We need him. Now, Nathaniel Tank Dell out of Houston. I want to talk about this guy because this dude is going to be screaming up the boards if he isn't. He's going to be screaming up the big boards if he isn't already. And let me see if I could find his write up. If they even
Yeah, why
have
is
it.
everybody so excited about this guy?
This dude was probably the best wide receiver at Senior Bowl, and everyone fell in love with this guy. Cornerbacks could not stay with him. No cornerbacks could stay with this guy. Let me Google.
So this is one of those guys for the because and I'm not a huge college guy either, but this is one of those guys who ended the college regular season at a certain position from a draft perspective, but then he increased his stock with his Senior Bowl performance, is what you're saying.
Yeah, he was probably being seen as say like a fifth round pick.
Yep.
The dude, let me give you until Senior Bowl. This guy is going to scream up the boards. He's probably going to go, I'd say no later than third round at this point.
Wow.
Cornerbacks could not stay with him. So he's not big. Okay, so he's 5'10", 155 pounds.
Holy shit, he
5'10".
weighs what I
So
weigh.
exactly, he's another guy who, like Jordan Addison, Jordan Addison's a little taller, but they're both on the light side. He's a guy who's not going to be breaking tackles, but you have to get your hands on this guy, and he is extremely tough to get your hands on. The guy is super fast. This past year for Houston, he's a wide receiver out of Houston. Um, he had a hunt for 20 for the 2022 season. He had 109 receptions, 1,400 yards, 17 touchdowns.
He's the security
Um,
blanket with all those catches
yeah,
too, which is nice.
this guy is electric in tight spaces. So he's someone get the ball in his hands. He's a playmaker. Get the ball in his hands and let him do his thing. Here's another guy that I think I could see. And obviously, it's not just the Giants, but just for what I believe Kafka and Dable want to do if Kafka's still around, but it's really Dable's offense anyway. I can see them going for someone like a Tank Dell because he makes things happen with the ball in his hand. And I don't think like Joe Shane, I don't think he's going to be just reaching for a big body just to get a big body. I think they're gonna go for talent, and Tank Dell does. He's got that. He's got that. Like I said, like Jordan Addison, you got to get your hands on this guy. Maybe once you get your hand on him, you're probably gonna bring him down, but you have to get your hand on him. Against press man, cornerbacks have a very hard time jamming him up because they can't get their hands on him. The guy's electric. Zay Flowers is very much the same way. So I know ideally, fellow Giants fans, that we're all looking for big bodies on the outside. My point being is that if it's not there, there's some really good talent um, that don't be disappointed if you hear a Zay Flowers being drafted or if you hear a Tank Dell being drafted because you're going to be very happy until we actually can get a talented big body on the outside. You're still going to be very happy that you have these guys.
The big body thing is a legit thing, there's no doubt about it. However,
It's
with the
legit.
way that the offenses are so dynamic these days, and when you're, the Giants offense, which is very much headlined by a running quarterback now, as much
Hmm.
as it's great to have the size, I want dynamic guys, and the reason
Me
why I like
too, Joe.
Hardman, Mercole Hardman from Kansas City is because
Hmm.
he can jet sweep, and he was doing that this year, and he was wide receiver screening when he was playing this year, and
Hmm.
you need all of that, and all of those options, it serves as deception at the same time,
Yeah.
which is going to give Daniel Jones more running lanes, more passing lanes, Saquon Barkley more running lanes,
Hmm.
and everything. So the big guy, it's 1A now with dynamic and speed and being able to line these guys up in multiple different ways, like you were talking about.
Hmm.
2023, I think that's just as important.
You just made a great point though too. About you mentioned McCall Hardman and how the Chiefs deploy him. Um, Another player that they have, they deploy the very same way, even though he's never healthy. But when he's healthy, they deploy him that way. Our Kadarius Tony,
Yep.
and
Yep.
people might say, "Well, we already have someone like a Wandale Robinson," which hopefully Wandale Robinson comes back fully healthy one day, and we can use them kind of like jet sweeps and stuff like that. Uh, but man, it's there's nothing wrong with having two players like that. You
Yep.
know, if it works for Andy Reid, it should work for us.
Yeah.
So if listen, copy that guy, whatever he's doing. Hopefully that's what Kafka's doing under Dable's tutelage. And but man, I love guys like that, like guys like a Kadarius Tony. When you get the ball in his hand, you don't know what the hell he's gonna do.
Yep.
And that's my main thing. But until we can actually get that legit, really good, big body on the outside, not just someone who's just a big body, you just throw him out there because you know you need a big body, but someone who's actually talented. Great. When we can get that, awesome. But until that point, listen, if we can't get that in this draft, just there's still some really talented guys out there, maybe on the smaller side, but don't be disappointed if you hear a Zay Flowers or a Nathaniel Tank Dell being drafted. These guys are friggin' electric, and those are the types of players that I really like. I just want playmakers like that, get the ball in their hands, and I'll
I
just do
need
some. Oh, go ahead, Joe.
No, I'm just gonna say I needed that draft. I needed that draft depth chart education. I did not have that, so I
Yeah.
appreciate it.
Oh, I love it, man. I'm sorry. Just keep your eye on Tank Dell. He's going to be screaming up the big boards. I'd be shocked if he, in real life, draft weekend. I'd be shocked if he makes it past the third round. Honorable mentions: Keishon Butte, LSU. This is a guy who was expected to be like a first round pick coming into this year. It's not. I don't think it's going to happen. He could wind up being a second round pick. This guy is injured. He had two surgeries over the past year. The second one was on his ankle. I forgot what the first one was on. Could have been his knee. I don't remember. This guy worries me. He's never had the production. Like he's got really good wide receiver talent with his hands, his route running, anything you could pretty much ask out of a wide receiver. Uh, but he doesn't have the big numbers. And LSU's been a crappy program, kind of like for the past few years. I think they were a little better this year. They were. I think they may even wound up being ranked at the end of the season. But I'm just his lack of big numbers in his 3-year career in college scares me.
Yep.
Let me see if I can bring up his measurables over here real quick. Yeah, I don't even see him over here. Okay, but I'm just pointing out that coming into the season, people were expecting a huge season from Keishon Butte. It didn't really happen. So I'm kind of staying away from if he happens to fall to like the fourth round and we want to take the dude. He is talented. He is talented. That would be exciting if we were to get him in the fourth round. And then also there's A.T. Perry out of Wake Forest. This dude is a speedster, and like Wake Forest is just like Baylor. These guys are known for their like track running wide receivers. Let's see if I can find him over here. Where the hell is he? But anyway, he's tall. Yeah, A.T. Perry. Okay, he is 6'5", 212
Wow.
pounds. Yeah, 6'5", 212 pounds. But like Wake Forest wide receivers and Baylor wide receivers, these guys are not polished wide receivers. They're not, accomplished route runners. A little, dropsy issues here and there, but these guys can take the top off of a defense. So he is fast and he is tall. I would say he's more of like a fifth round pick, A.T. Perry. But hey, listen, don't be surprised if we double down on wide receiver in this draft. Maybe first or second round and maybe another one like in the fourth or fifth round. Don't be surprised. So there's some good options, but like I said, I'm trying to just pick out guys that make sense to me and also who I love too. So and and that is that. But I'll tell you, if they were to sign OBJ, it'd be interesting, man.
I,
It'll give us options in the
yeah.
draft.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, I love this tonight. I'm already thinking about like I can't wait to do this for defensive end, pass rushers
Yeah,
and everything else.
yeah, man.
This is a good exercise and the perfect time of year to be talking about it.
Yeah, yeah. We'll discuss afterwards who we want to do next. Second, cornerbacks or defensive linemen or offensive line and tight ends. But absolutely, man, that was great. And but hey, guys, before we go, please just a reminder: hit that like button, subscribe, hit the bell, give us that 5-star Apple review. We'd really appreciate it. All helps us out a lot. And before you go, just got the Twitter handles for me, Joe, and the rest of our like 13 other compadres here at Toilets and Titles, as well as at the CFB Nation. We got Leverett KT and Moon Vibes in there, and yeah, so
Hey,
yeah, we got
enjoy the
we're like
Super
we're
Bowl
like
on Sunday.
what's that?
Enjoy the Super Bowl Sunday.
You too, man. Enjoy the game. Enjoy the game on Sunday. It's like I said, it feels like it's been like 4 weeks, but looking forward to it. And then after that, it's gonna be full on draft.
Yeah.
Here
Yeah.
we come. Draft content. Here we come, and free agency as well will be kicking into gear in early March, I believe. I
Yeah.
think it starts early March, like first week in March. So see what happens.
I'll
But all
tell you
right,
what,
man.
the last real thought I'll leave, we have not had the coaching nor the play calling in place to have some of these more dynamic guys who line up in
Yeah,
different ways and maybe take a handoff, maybe take a screen, whatever it may be. But I feel confident that we finally actually do have the play calling and the coaching in place to be able to get the most out of this talent. I mean, and they proved it this year. They got a lot out of, they got a playoff win out of that team and out of that roster, and
dude.
which is pretty admirable.
100%, man. We went from looking like it was going to be Kenny Galladay, Kadarius Toney, Sterling Shepard, and who else? Is there someone else I'm
Slayton, I
forgetting?
guess.
Yeah, actually, and he was
But
like
He
He was
wasn't even
almost
playing at the
cut.
beginning of the year. Yeah,
He was
yeah,
almost cut if
yeah,
he didn't take the pay cut. And
yep.
here we are going to the playoffs with Isaiah Hodgins, Richie James, and Darius Slayton.
And
So,
Bellinger playing relevant, and so I mean,
oh, yeah,
this cast of coaching has already started to prove that they can make the most out of these guys. So that's exciting too.
yeah, man. Coaching just the coaching is so key. Coaching and get yourself a really good quarterback, and it makes all the difference in the world. It really does. But all right, everyone, that is it. We are done for tonight. Everyone, enjoy the Super Bowl. We'll see you back next Wednesday. Adios, everyone. Take care, Joe.